Gettysburg Museum of History Studios.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
I always feel like I'm forgetting something when I start these things without a producer in the back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of Addressing Gettysburg. We are back. It is the beginning of the month, and that means our friend Jason Martz is on from Gettysburg National Military Park. Chief Weapons Inspector, right?
Sure.
No. It is Communications Specialist, Jason. That is what your position is.
It is.
And welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
I always enjoy these, Jason. I hope you do too.
I actually do.
Yeah.
You know, I can tell you actually a little side story.
Go ahead.
As far as one of your fans out there.
Oh, the only one.
Well, maybe. The only one that would admit it.
Yeah, right.
Met him at the opening evening program for World War II weekend a couple Fridays ago.
Okay.
And we were getting everything all set up for Dan Vermiglia, Ranger Vermiglia, and his guest. And gentleman came down from in the seats, and he said, "You're Jason Martz, right?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, I want to thank you for coming on
Addressing Gettysburg.
Matt's podcast."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I was like, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that." And he said it really helped put a face to what might seem like a big, the big monster federal
the man
agency,
in the high castle type of thing.
Yeah, the man in the high castle kind of thing. And it's like, no, we're
people.
We're people like you. In fact, would you like to? I'd like to shake your hand. And he's like, yeah. So we have confirmation that there is in fact one person out there who will at least admit
that they listen to this show,
to being a fan.
Wow, that's
good
amazing.
for you.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Good for you.
It's taken me 46 years to finally achieve one.
Better late than never.
That's what I always say. It didn't fly in school when I would say better late than never. Turning in a paper or showing up.
No.
But now I think it does work. It applies very well. I've heard from a lot of people that they really appreciate you coming on here. When Steve Sims came on years ago, but that all went so fast. They really appreciated that too, and I'm glad that you're continuing that because and when Chris Gwynn comes on, it's like they love to hear from the park.
Yeah.
And I am very happy that you guys will actually come on here and do that because I think, as I was saying to you before we started recording, and we're going to get into this later, but you see things online, and I feel like, because, it's tough for me to look at this as business, right? Because, we do this monthly. I see you around. We shoot the S and we talk or whatever. I've known Chris for, over a decade, and it's like you kind of become buddies. And so you see, like, and even I am guilty of, criticizing decisions sometimes at the park. Of course, we know this. And, but I feel bad because it's like, you're just doing your job, right? And then I see what everybody's saying online. And sometimes I'm like, well, I know that's not the case because we've had Jason on the show and he's explained it. So clearly that person is not listening to Addressing Gettysburg and they should be drawn and quartered. But
line them up.
Yeah. So, but I do appreciate you coming on, and the people do as well. And I hope that this is continued. This continues, and people see it as a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat. That we know that there are so many people out there that just love Gettysburg, love the battlefield, love the Eisenhower farm, and they care. Which is
what is so exciting about doing all this is because you're actually dealing with something people care about.
Yeah.
Because how many other people who work in the federal government can say, I deal with members of the public who actually care? I'm sure maybe there's some, but this is different, right? There's like a love for this place and a love for the story, and the American people feel that they are just as much custodians of this place as you guys are.
And they are.
And they are.
That's a true statement.
But I don't know if that goes everywhere. Maybe it does. I'm sure other parks have their...
The National Park Service is one of the rare federal agencies that I think a lot of Americans feel that way about.
Yeah.
That these places belong to them.
Yeah.
And they take that very seriously. And that's that has way more benefits than not. And so we're happy to be able to come on here, give everyone who listens, straight answers.
Yeah.
And, try as best as we possibly can to avoid misinformation and rumors and so forth. And if there is something out there and they want to contact you, Matt has connections with us at the park. Let somebody, whether it be Matt, whether it be me, whether it be someone else at the park, Chris Gwynn, etc., let us know.
Yeah.
We're not going to skirt an answer. It may not be the answer you want, but we have an answer and we have reasons why that is the case.
That is a good point. You're more than welcome to send me an email, Matt@addressinggettysburg, MATT@addressinggettysburg.com, and I'll put that in my list of questions for the next time Jason comes on, because usually I have one thing that I want to talk about, and I let you just kind of share whatever the park wants to share. So it would be good to get more of these things. But also, ladies and gentlemen, you can call in. So if you have any questions, 717-420-1978 is the phone number. You might as well get in the queue now, because then I can mix you in instead of do everybody at once. I can sprinkle you in between things. But let's let Jason get started here with what he wants to talk about. We got a lot of stuff, it looks like, going on. First, let's go back. How was World War II weekend?
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but the numbers of visitors, I think, from all accounts, may have set a record. And this, I think, was the 26th one of these, 26th annual, with a year or two down during the pandemic. But it was amazing. We had such an amazing interaction with the public that then interacted with the Living History encampment, historians. We had ranger-led tours that went through the camp, and those who were in the camp with the different groups, they picked up and talked about what it was that they were doing here at World War II weekend, and then what they were portraying, and how that interacted with the 80th anniversary of the campaigns of 1944. And there were multiple of those throughout the day. We had an amazing list of guest speakers. They were all, in most cases, packed full, large tent to get out of the sun. Remember when we had sun?
Yeah, I've heard of it, and I have a vague memory of sun.
Apparently it's a thing. Folks, if you haven't,
behind the clouds.
Sorry, inside joke there. We've had a lot of rain here in Gettysburg.
It's been like
about a
2 weeks of rain.
Full week and a half.
Miserable.
Tired of it. But we had an amazing family program this year, where the kids could go around, again, involving the living history groups, and complete 5 of 8 of these different activities that they had to participate in actively within each of these camps. They would then get a star, and if they got 5 stars, Ike being a 5-star general, right? There's the connection.
Clever.
They could then bring it back to the family tent, where they could then get a real dog tag.
Oh, neat.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I saw those. Those were cool. Yeah.
We have Eisenhower. We were able to purchase a legitimate historic dog tag machine a couple years ago, and it's the incentive to get that amazing piece of history on a machine that actually would have made these for World War II.
For World War II guys, yeah.
How cool is
that? Is
how
pretty
cool. Is that?
I finally made it out. I've never been to one, and I said this year, I'm like, I'm gonna go by hook or crook. I had a lot of things going on Saturday, so I couldn't get out there. And then I went Sunday. It was kind of rainy. Sundays for weekend events, I guess, are always kind of sparse as far as attendance goes, because people have to get home because they got to work on Monday and stuff like that. So there weren't a ton of people there, but I was talking to some friends that I bumped into who were there, and they were saying that Saturday was like off the hook, as the kids say.
Yes.
And I'm very glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that something is really starting to catch on. I mean, it's always been a thing, and people have always talked about it, and it's always had its enthusiasts. But I have a feeling that like last year and this year, I think it's really starting to hit its stride.
Yeah.
Is that the same feeling you're getting?
Absolutely. Yeah. What we've tried to do is make it as interpretive and interactive as possible, and a little bit more is being added each year based on the successes of the year before.
Yeah.
So if something didn't work, we're not going to go back to that well. But if it's working, and the folks over at Eisenhower have been coming up with some amazing ideas and have brought in some fantastic speakers.
Yeah.
And the groups themselves are not that they didn't necessarily schedule World War II weekend into their overall encampment schedules as they bounced around the country doing different events, but they're really, really excited to have come back this year based on the success of last year. So we're just continuing to build, and we think we're kind of close to that ultimate vision of what the staff out there have come up with and have ideas, but we're still building off of successes, and if something's not working, we're going to go a different direction. But you're right. The past couple years have been better and better and better, and we're talking about experiences for everybody across the board: staff, visitors, the living history groups, kids, you name it.
I think World War II is starting to creep back into the American consciousness, because those of us who, my grandparents were of that generation.
Yep,
they let's see, my last grandparent died in 2009 at 93. Mm-hmm. So they were like the early part of the war, going in. And now we're starting, we're down to a very few thousand, I believe, right?
Right.
And we're going to lose them all pretty soon. And I think we're starting to go, man, like, for me, my thought is how far we're how far away from who they were we are today, I think, in many ways. In other ways, there's still that spirit is still alive in many Americans, but we're very different. And walking through there and seeing what would you call it? Well, the civilian things, but also seeing the things that were there to entertain, or not entertain, but kind of comfort the troops, little care packages and things like that.
Yep.
Not that they don't have that stuff today, but there's a charm to that. And, but because I was raised with grandparents from that generation, it's part of my life too, because there's some things that they carried until the day they died, and so I'm familiar with them, but because it was in my periphery, growing up and everything like that. So it's a kind of a comfort there. Yeah. And I just noticed that a lot of younger people, everything seems to be going towards World War II, which is great, because I think, we can't forget those guys and gals and what they did, and that whole war was horrendous. Yeah. And so it's good to see. Also, I noticed too that a lot of the reenactors are, in many ways, the age that soldiers would have been back then, or closer to the age than you see in the Civil War hobby, which is kind of refreshing. I saw a whole bunch of them playing baseball out in the field, right?
Yeah, that was so
cool.
And that wasn't planned. That was just
they were
pickup
just
among the guys. Yeah,
it was really cool. So I said to myself, I'm like, next year I'm going on Saturday. I don't care, what's going. We had our own tour this year, but I'm like, but I could have gone after, So I didn't though. All right, so good news is that there's a continuing resolution in Congress, so you guys are still funded. There's not going to be a shutdown until.
So the continuing resolution language that got passed, I think, runs through December 20th.
All right, so we have at least until then.
So we're good to go.
And you'd be taking off for Christmas break anyway in a couple of days. Well, not break, but you'd get Christmas Day off, right?
Yeah, we get Christmas. In fact, the only 3 days that the Museum and Visitor Center is closed is Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day.
Okay.
Battlefield's open 365.
Right.
But yeah, it's we're getting into that holiday week where a lot of folks just typically take off
anyway. Right. So yeah, but you want to have a job to come back to.
we do, and it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
And
it seems like this is almost an annual threat that looms.
Yeah.
But all right. So, but that's good news though. So we still have that going. And so one of the things that will be going on are battle walks and campfires are still continuing through October.
Yep.
Any that you want to highlight?
No, I didn't actually pull the schedule. I do know when they end here in October. The campfires end on October 19th. That's the last one. And the last battle walk is the following day on October 20th.
Okay.
Living history programs continue through the end of the month, but they're not every weekend. And the regular ranger programs that are currently scheduled go through the end of October, with potentially more going through a little bit in December. I'm sorry, a little bit more through November 19th, but that's TBD. We haven't gotten that.
Is that based on weather, TBD?
Largely staffing.
Staffing, okay.
The staffing that we have right now continues to dwindle to the point where we're kind of getting to the off season, so we can still offer a couple programs, but how many, which day, that kind of thing is still TBD.
And the seasonals are finished, or they're about to be finished?
Some of them have finished already if they're still in school. They've
obviously have to go back.
long since gone back, but a couple of them are still here, but they are ones who have graduated and are able to put in a couple extra weeks,
okay,
or even months. It kind of depends, but yeah, we have a couple left.
Now, before we move on to the next thing, we allegedly have a caller from Australia.
Oh,
who wants to come out here very, very badly. Grant, you're on the air.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Pretty good, Grant. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. Hi, Jason.
Hello, sir.
I will be quick. I have two questions. Firstly, what's the most crucial thing that needs to be improved in the park, in your opinion? If the government gave you money, was there some part of the park that needs revampment or improvement the most?
Okay. Do you want me to answer that, or do you want to ask both questions first?
That's the first one, but go ahead.
Okay. So the next one that's up. So for instance, we just finished the little Roundtop rehabilitation earlier this year. That opened back up on June 24th. The next one that we're looking to is probably going to be the National Cemetery. There's a fair amount of work that needs to be done there, but things don't necessarily move very quickly in the federal government. So we can talk about it at the moment, but there really aren't any details.
Okay. And Grant, what's your second question?
Secondly, thank you. If you had a blank check from the government, you could do anything you wanted to the park, anything in your wildest dreams, what would it be?
It's an interesting question.
I have no idea. I don't even know where to begin to answer that one. There's.
What about you, Matt?
I would put a statue to me on Little Roundtop, which is why it's probably a good idea that the government isn't giving me any money.
No one wants to see that.
Yeah, right. But yeah, that there are so many things that happen in a national park, like Gettysburg and Eisenhower National Historic Site. I think at any given point in time, any one of us might have like a top 5, and we would have to figure out what maybe the top 3 would be. But yeah, what would we do if we had a blank check? That's so far fetched, I think.
Yeah.
for reality, that I don't know if anyone's ever really given that much thought. It's I think we tend to think in realistic terms and what we can do from year to year. And the projects that we're working on tend to be that we're already thinking about are multiple years out because that's how the government funding works.
Right.
That's just the nature of the beast. So I wish I could give you maybe a little bit better answer, but I'd have to come back and kind of get more information, from the staff. My gosh, what would you do if you had a blank check?
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Grant, how's Dad doing?
Still kicking.
Good,
I'll let you go, Matt.
Yeah, all
Thank
right.
you,
We'll talk to
Jason,
you on
for doing
Thursday.
very important work.
You're
All right.
welcome, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you.
bye.
Thanks, Grant. Have a good one. If you want to call in, ladies and gentlemen, it's 717-420-1978 is the number. Call in and have some fun with us. Okay. So the other thing, Eisenhower, the hours are changing, right?
Well, yeah, that would be the house tours.
The house
The house tours. Both parks, both Eisenhower National Historic Site and Gettysburg National Military Park, are open daily. The grounds are from 30 minutes before sunrise to 30 minutes after sunset. That gives everybody the golden hour, as it's known in photography terms, for those fantastic sunrises
Beautiful
and sunsets.
time of day, yep.
But the house tours, again, we were just talking about how the seasonal staff tends to start dropping off when colleges go back in session for the fall and so forth. So we, both Gettysburg and Eisenhower, have staffing starts to drop off. So the house tours also have to drop back a little bit, but they will be taking place on weekends in the month of October from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And they're free. You walk up, and we've changed it up a little bit. You don't need any kind of ticket or anything like that. It's just more of an open house. The house will hold 40 people in its entirety per fire code. So as people exit, so if a group of 2 exit, a group of 2 can go in, a group of 5 comes out, a group of 4 can go in.
And are they roaming through on their own, or is it a tour like where someone's taking them through?
They'll get an orientation in the living room, which is the first room the big room that they walk into after they come in through the front door. And then after that, they're allowed to roam.
Oh, cool.
On their own. But we do have a guide that is handed out. We have a virtual tour on the app. We have a lot of different ways to get more information than just simply walking through and looking into each of the rooms. So there's a lot of ways folks can get a lot more information and a lot more out of that visit, even if it is just on their own.
Because if folks at home, if you haven't gone to the Eisenhower yet, you really should, because it's interesting. Because you walk in, and this is what I love about it. It reminds me of my grandparents' house until you find out the story of the pieces of furniture or the knickknacks in the curio cabinet, and you realize it's like, oh no, that's from like the King of Siam or whatever, and it's like, well, my grandparents didn't have any of that. Like my grandma had Hummels, she didn't have any of that cool stuff. So it's deceptively not interesting. Like it looks like, oh, what? This is like my grandparents' house, but then learn about the stories about these different things. And I really like his office.
Yeah.
Because it's very plain, it's very Spartan. There's just really nothing there.
No.
Just a phone and a desk and an ashtray.
And
but then
his portrait of Lincoln behind him.
And a portrait of Lincoln, right, yeah. And so that's pretty cool. And also when you go to the Secret Service office off in that little barn type of thing, that's pretty neat too, to see the equipment that they had back then. And it's got the hot plate and just stuff for their coffee and all that. So it's a really neat thing to go and see. It's some people might think, oh, house tour, but no, it's very interesting.
No, even the wallpaper is unique. The wallpaper that's in the foyer that runs up along the stairs to the second floor.
Okay,
that wallpaper is a one of a kind.
Why is that?
As is often the case when a president retires. Typically, the different folks from different companies kind of crawl out of the woodwork and say, we admire you as a person, as a president. You did such a great, Eisenhower's list of accomplishments, is a mile long.
Sure.
But one of the companies came out of the woodwork and said, we have this design that is specific, and it's a one-off. You're it, and we'd love to present it to you. where we'd install it the whole 9 yards, and that was actually just restored a couple years ago.
Now I got to take another look at that. What was
Yeah.
the company? Remember?
Yeah.
So close.
So close.
To a perfect story.
Almost, yeah. But I tell you what, Matt,
Yeah.
go there and you'll learn all
Oh,
about
there
it.
you go. There you go. That's what I'll do.
There
I'll have
you
to
go.
take Cindy there. I don't think. Oh no, we did. Or was I? I don't remember who I was with. All right. No. That was before I met Cindy. We went there when they were doing the Christmas movie. That's right. We got a little tour of it, but I don't remember the wallpaper.
Yeah.
So now I got to go back.
Yeah,
and
no,
check.
there's unique stuff around every corner, and in some cases it's a one-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a book talk coming up.
Yep, book talk coming up on October 12th, and that is at 11 o'clock in the morning, and that takes place in the Ford Education Room, so that's kind of in the back corner of the visitor center. It's a Dr. Kate, and I apologize if I'm going to mispronounce the name. I don't know if it's Mazur, but it's spelled
I'm going to say Massar.
Masur. Okay.
Yeah.
Masur.
Yeah.
So I apologize
my guess.
if I butcher that. But Dr. Kate Masur is going to be talking about a book that she recently wrote called Freedom Was in Sight, and it's about the Reconstruction era in Washington, D.C.
Very good.
So post-World War II. I'm sorry, oh my gosh, we're talking about all this World War II stuff. It's on my mind.
Yeah.
Post-Civil War in the nation's capital.
I feel like maybe that name sounds familiar because I might have her scheduled for an interview. Because that book also sounds familiar, and I might be sitting on my table.
Is it around October 12th?
It could be. I don't even know my schedule for tomorrow, so don't ask. Don't ask me that far out. But we'll find out. We'll find out. All right, so that's October 12th at what time again?
That's at 11 o'clock in the morning. Runs about an hour.
All right.
And it's free, no tickets required.
And then also the education programs are back. What are those? And
Absolutely.
who are they for?
The education programs that run out of both Gettysburg and Eisenhower. I can speak especially for the ones at Eisenhower. At the ones at Gettysburg. There's a full list, and I can't even name them all. But there's a full list of programs that take place on the battlefield. There's a full assortment of different things that we can send to you, like traveling trunks, traveling maps, all kinds of different things to kind of get the students involved in the story of the Battle of Gettysburg in any number of different ways. Our Rangers, of course, because of things like the pandemic a couple years back, if you can't make it to Gettysburg, we can come to you virtually.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of opportunities for teachers out there, or if you know a teacher out there, let them know that Gettysburg and Eisenhower are at your disposal, and to find more information on either of the two park websites.
So it doesn't matter. So you don't have the excuse of, well, you're so far away, we can't get to you. You could be in the furthest reaches of Alaska, and you guys can virtually help them out and teach. That's pretty good.
And you could be a classroom on a military base halfway around the globe as well.
There you go.
So we would be, that the timing might be a little off, but try to work with everybody no matter where they are. And,
it's like talking to Grant on the phone. There's that delay.
Well, yeah. But yeah, if there's a way and there's a will, we'll make it happen.
And then, Dedication Day is coming up as well in November, so we'll revisit this at the beginning of November, but what do you got planned for that so people can plan?
Yep. In fact, I'm still hungover, if you will, from World War II weekend a couple weekends ago.
Okay.
Last week, I think a lot of us were on
Cloud 9.
Cloud 10, maybe. We were whooped.
Yeah.
We were.
Oh, so you were just beat.
We were beat.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, because it's think about it. We had been getting ready for the reopening of Little Roundtop.
Right.
A week later was battle anniversary, and then after that we went into full getting ready for World War II weekend at Eisenhower mode. So we're kind of still a little hungover.
Yeah.
From that. So
it's
last week we were
drained.
We were drained.
Yeah.
Yeah. Burned out, I believe.
Burned out
is the clinical term for that. Yeah.
Right. It's the medical term.
So yeah, aside from the fact that I know that there's going to be a ceremony at 10 o'clock in the morning on November 19th in the Gettysburg National Cemetery,
That's about it.
that might be about it
Yeah.
for the time being.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, all right. Luckily, we'll have you
But we've
back
got
on in
time.
November. Yeah.
But we've got time.
Yeah. Oh, and then the last thing here I have is the Ike decorations, the Christmas decorations, Eisenhower Christmas decorations. Those usually go up. Now, you do at the house too, right? So the house gets decorated for Christmas, but also in the visitor center in the lobby, there's usually some kind of something, if I recall, right? What is it? I'm trying to remember what it is.
It's a nativity
The
scene.
nativity scene. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a big shadow box
That's it. Yep.
display that is there in the lobby of the Museum and Visitor Center, and that goes up at the same time as well. It kind of is a precursor. If your first stop in Gettysburg is the Museum and Visitor Center,
Right.
you're not just getting Battle of Gettysburg information, you're also getting a wide
Sure.
range of information that
Sure.
also is, why is there a nativity scene
Right.
here?
Right.
That was, of course, owned by the Eisenhower. So that sparks an interest. It sparks a conversation at the information desk, and hopefully folks who aren't even familiar that or aware that Eisenhower National Historic Site is immediately adjacent to Gettysburg and the battlefield, that they go right over and, kind of incorporate it into their auto tour.
I've talked to a bunch of people who are surprised that, like, they didn't know that he lived here.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't know that there was a Eisenhower connection to Gettysburg.
Yeah.
So I think that's just another thing that I think, grabs somebody who's just go, oh God, we're going to another battlefield, and then they go, oh, well, Eisenhower, oh, that's interesting, and then they can go see a house or whatever, and that might be more their speed than a battlefield.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
So it's a good thing to have all this other stuff. So somebody, Grant wants to know, he said ask about the winter lectures, but we can get to that. We still have a couple more months before those start. But overall, they're still going on, right?
Yep.
Okay.
First weekend in January, and I think end the first weekend in March.
Yes.
Ish. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's.
You know what I
that's the
love
timing.
about them is it makes the winter go by so fast.
It does.
Right?
It really does.
Like, it's something to look forward to.
Uh-huh.
It's something to occupy your time.
Yep.
And before you know it, you're like, oh, it's the second to last one already. And then you're like, okay, now spring can or spring can spring. And it really does make it go a lot easier.
It makes for a much cleaner connection between, let's say, the end of one season and the beginning of the next.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing to have because it keeps people who are hungering for this stuff coming back, number one, and it's giving them something to sink their teeth into without having to go out in the freezing, frigid, windy cold, which I don't know anybody who enjoys that, but apparently people do. Not me.
There are some.
Not me. But we'll get more into that. Not maybe, but I'll invite Chris on to give us the schedule maybe in December.
Yeah.
Maybe the two of you can come together. That would be interesting.
Hey now.
Yeah. Hey now. So there you go, Grant. We'll get more into that later.
Well, that would be a get for you.
To get both of you at the same time?
That'd be hard. That's how do you top that?
If it was you, Chris, and Chris Heister who came on all at the same time.
Well,
that would be interesting to have all three of you on.
That would be a get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the president.
Gettysburg Foundation president.
No, the president of the United States of America. Get all four of you on at the same time.
All right. Well,
we'll work on that.
I'll talk to my people.
Yeah, okay.
I'll talk to my people, man.
All right. So now let's get into what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. I really just want to talk about one thing to clear up here, right? Yeah, just one thing, basically. Well, all right, let's do a follow-up from what we had talked about before. The bus parking versus car parking on Little Roundtop. We had talked about in previous appearances of yours that there are people that have been parking in the bus parking lot with cars. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes right in front of the sign that says bus parking only. And just to refresh the audience or catch them up to speed, the answer was, well, we're kind of like feeling things out. We're going to see the ebb and flow of traffic and then adjust accordingly, but we got to see like what a full year looks like.
Right.
Am I correct in remembering that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So how's that all going? It's still continuing, obviously. The reason I ask is because I see people posting pictures on, wherever, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and they obviously haven't listened to your appearances because they would know what's going on when they see those cars there. But how's it going?
Not a whole lot has changed. We're continuing to learn. We're continuing to see how visitation now interacts with the rehabilitated Little Roundtop. One of the things that we're trying to get out, and certainly, if I may, use this as a platform for just a few minutes,
Sure.
is that when we were looking at how to rehabilitate Little Roundtop for the betterment of the space, the long-term viability, when you have close to 1 million people coming to Gettysburg every year, 90% of those
Want to
go to Little Roundtop.
Right.
Those are hard facts. It takes its toll on the space. So we kept all the parking that was formal. Okay, so that's everything at the summit. 24 cars on the left. That's how it was before. That's how it is now. The car parking, or kind of ad hoc parking, that was on the right side of the summit, it was that parallel parking.
Yes.
That could be used by anybody.
Right.
Cars, trucks with trailers, buses, RVs, anybody. Well, what we utilized is years and years and years of data that said that during the busiest times, the busiest bus seasons, and there are two of them. There was one in the spring when it's constant kids on field trips.
Yes.
Right, from all over the country.
Yes.
March, April, May, maybe even a little bit of June. And it's solid for basically 90 days, 120 days. And then there's another one smaller here in October. A lot of folks come in on bus tours doing looking at the colors.
Right.
That as autumn
Leafers.
leaf peepers, as I like to
Leaf
call them.
peepers.
Leaf peepers.
Okay, I like that too.
Yeah, you can use that one.
I will.
But that's the other busy bus season. Considerably smaller, way more compact, but we're going to learn quite a bit. We're hoping to learn quite a bit here over the next month or so as the autumn colors do their thing, so that we can be better prepared for the big one that's coming in spring. And so what happens then during the seasons that aren't those big, heavy bus seasons? So we're talking 4 to 5 months out of the year. Okay, well, what about the other 7 months or so? Well, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay.
We're not there yet. We do need some time. But here's the thing. If you're a returning Gettysburg visitor and you're familiar with the battlefield, there are lots of other places that you can park and just avoid the summit entirely.
Right.
Okay. In fact, we expanded the gravel parking lot that's on Wheatfield Road on the north face of Little Roundtop. I think that'll hold 19 cars now. So it was about doubled in size.
Okay.
You can park along the right-hand side of Sedgwick Avenue, which is, again, on the north side of Little Roundtop. And from there, there's a new trail that was specifically put in to allow visitors to get a more immersive experience with Little Roundtop.
You mean the one walking up the backside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a new trail that's specifically designed for,
which is
for
very
visitors.
nice and easy to walk up, by the way.
It is, and what it does is it shows that there's way more to Little Roundtop than just the summit.
Yeah.
Okay, and all those trails are connected, so you can park on the north end, walk up to the summit with all the new trails that were purposefully put in for this reason, and still get up to the summit, but see and experience way more of the Little Roundtop story than maybe you even ever knew.
Yeah.
And maybe never even saw, because there really wasn't a good way to get to some of these other places.
Right.
Another one, you can park on South Confederate Avenue before you get to, let's say, the 20th Main on the right. And there's the trail, of course, right there. So you can park even before you get to the summit of Little Roundtop. Again, just avoid it. and also on Warren Avenue. That's the road coming up from Devil's Den. There are now 5 dedicated car spaces on the left-hand side. There's 2 bump outs that weren't lined.
Right.
That weren't striped before.
Yeah.
Well, they're striped for cars on the left, and then larger vehicles can park on the right. So
Parallel park.
A bus, an RV, truck with a trailer, something like that. So there's lots of other options. Think of them as satellite parking, like you would maybe get when you go to the airport.
Sure.
You don't necessarily park right at the terminal. You park at a satellite and take a shuttle bus. Well, in this case, all of these new trails were put in specifically for visitors to really take in all of Little Round Top.
Well, and I don't know if it's officially called the Texas Trail, but I know it's been referred to as the Texas Trail. Like walking up that trail is for me. It was always there's always something. There was a social trail there, but I never went up it. But then once everything reopened, I did go up. And I was like, this is really neat because it's a perspective that you never really saw, or I never really saw before. Yeah. And I would imagine that most people, except like the hardcore people, didn't go down there when it was just a social trail. They would just stay up, up at the top, right? And there are these other trails that make it easier to get up to the top from these areas. So it's not like you have to like get out of your car if you're parking on Warren Avenue and then walk up the rest of Warren Avenue, then turn left on Sykes and walk up that way. There's a path for you to get up there, and it might show you a side of Little Round Top that you never really saw before. So would the advice be then? This isn't obviously the rule, but a good piece of advice would be leave those parking spots on the top of the hill for people who might have trouble walking, older people, people who just aren't in the shape to walk up a hill. And then if you can do it, park at the bottom and walk up and enjoy the scenery because it is pretty neat. It is a pretty cool way to approach it because, how many times can you approach it from the tippy top, before it gets boring?
And I think one of the things that visitors are now seeing maybe for the first time is that so much of the battle action on Little Round Top wasn't on the west face, but was on the south face.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get to the south face in the past. And now there are multiple ways to get up that south and kind of southwest side, like you're saying. And it's not a formal name, but we've heard it referred to as the Texas Trail as well. But you get a much better appreciation of the topography.
Yes.
And what the Confederates had to physically fight against, never mind the fact that mini balls and canister rounds are raining down,
flying down in their faces.
Them. They had to battle the geography, the topography of the land, and to understand that better, park on Warren, park on South Confederate, and use those new trails that are now formally there for that purpose.
And when you get to the top, turn around and look. It is the Vincent's Brigade. Those regiments are way more it's easier for me to see the way the battle line was arrayed now than before with the reconstructed stone walls. I mean, they look a little perfect, which they weren't. I'm sure the soldiers would have died to have walls that looked like that back then, right?
Yeah, they weren't there during the battle, but that's what the soldiers left us with,
right?
And that's what's interpreted now.
So, but the reason they're taller probably than they would have been, or maybe they're as tall, but they're much more aligned. Let's say they look more like landscaping walls, but. You have to do that because people are going to climb on them probably, even though you tell them not to. They're going to do it, and they look like they're sturdier.
Yeah.
So I understand that. But it also is, if you go up in the 44th New York Castle and you look down and you can see the wall all the way across the hill, and it puts a picture in your mind. And then when you go and you look at the new Wayside with Dave Geisel's painting with showing the battle and showing them in these positions, it makes it a whole lot easier to picture that. And you're right. It's very obvious that the fighting, at least that everybody's really interested in learning about the Vincent's Brigade stuff, 20th Maine, is on the southern slope of the hill, not the western slope of the hill. But also The stuff that went on the western slope of the hill is better or easier to see and access too. So, yeah, it is good. Okay, so we've talked about that on every one of these episodes, how a good a job it is. And if you haven't been here yet to see it, I think you will be pleased with it. I really don't know anybody who doesn't like what has been done where you can walk. The one big thing that people will always complain about is parking. Mm-hmm. But this is Gettysburg. Parking stinks no matter where you go in Gettysburg, right? But real quick, 717-420-1978 is the number if you want to call in, if you have anything, questions, comments, whatever you want us to talk about. So there was a post the other day, and in the post, this was on Facebook, it was a photo of cars parked in the bus spaces. But then there was a comment later on. Somebody had shared a picture of bicyclists walking their bikes up the hill while a group of hikers were walking down the hill, and there was no room. This was on Sykes Avenue. There was no room for the car to get through because of this foot traffic on either side of the road. And of course, so that starts a discussion about how did they not foresee this, all that stuff. And then there was a comment left that claimed that at the last meeting with guides that the Park Service had, they said that the park said that bicycles and segways will no longer be allowed to go up the road. Now, I believe the comment, or at least made it seem like it was they're not allowed on Little Roundtop. Now, explain to me, because we talked about this before the show started, because I wanted to get an idea what the answer is. So explain to everybody, and if I interrupt you, it's just to clarify things. Sure. So that people don't run away with conspiracy theories. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's start with the speed limit throughout the battlefield.
Okay, 75 miles an hour.
75 miles an hour.
No, that's not true.
Segways and bikes can't go that. No, I'm kidding. Okay. All right. So we're back to
we're back to reality.
Reality. Okay. So it's 25 miles per hour throughout the entire battlefield, and this is the case across the battlefield in certain locations. So things are set up for safety purposes, first and foremost. In the case of segways, let's start there.
Okay.
Segways are not necessarily restricted from going up Sykes Avenue to the summit of Little Roundtop, but segways, by their very nature, can't go that fast. And so one of the other issues is that the rental location or locations, I'm not sure how many places are here in town, but it's typically someone who's maybe never even been on a Segway. They had to train them to even leave their
You got to get a little
their storefront. Yeah. You got to get like
a crash course.
A crash course on
no pun intended.
No, not a pun.
Right.
But that's the serious effect here. So you have typically brand new users on something like a Segway.
Yeah.
That is different. It's not a bicycle. It's not a car. It's not a motorcycle. It isn't anything like anything else.
You've never ridden something like this before.
Right.
Yeah. They're fun though.
Go
fun. Ahead.
So in certain places on the battlefield, like West Confederate Avenue or Hancock Avenue, where it's basically a straight shot and the road is wide enough to accommodate parking on the right-hand side of the road and driving on the left-hand side, there's plenty of room for them to Segway.
Right.
Ride. Stand. Get from point A to point B. I don't know what you call riding. Is it
ride?
Is it riding?
You ride it. Yeah, sure.
But when you get to a place like Little Roundtop, you do get into a specific location where the safety of the rider, especially when you consider who that rider might be, more often than not, someone who's never been on it until an hour and a half before that.
Right.
It's not a safe proposition.
And so
Segways can't maintain the 25 mile an hour traffic.
Right, because their max speed isn't even 25 miles an hour.
No, in fact, I looked this up before coming out here, and it's either 12 miles an hour or 18. And from what you were saying, you thought that these were the older versions that could only go 12. And that's,
I don't know where I got that idea, but
that actually sounds right per their special use permit to come into the park. It's that the 12 mile an hour is what sounds right. So it's a dangerous place if you're not familiar with how to ride, going up a hill where the road is now 15 feet wide rather than 24, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
And they can't take any of the sidewalks. They can't take any of the trails.
They have to stay on roads.
They have to stay on roads.
They can't dismount and walk them like you can with a bicycle and go on a footpath. You have to stay on the roads because you're a motorized vehicle. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And the other thing is, and you bring up the point of the curbs. It's not as wide of a road as it used to be.
Actually, it is. It just we're now dealing with the road surface, not the
right. Okay.
The rain gutters.
You don't have the gutters that you used to have that you could go into if you had to.
Which you weren't supposed to, but they did anyway.
Of course you did. Well, they should have just put up a sign if they didn't want them to do it.
A sign.
You know how much those work?
Why didn't we think a sign?
Yeah, that would have solved all your problems, Jason. Jeez, you need to consult with me before you do things.
A sign.
Yeah, duh. Anyway, but with the curbs, you definitely can't go off the road now, right? Like before, you weren't supposed to go into the gutter or the grass, but you did. You could physically do it. You don't have that option now. Mm-hmm. So now you're riding on a Segway, which you just learned how to ride an hour and a half ago, and you're mindful of hitting that curb because if you hit that curb, it might not be fun for you. Plus, there's a car coming up behind you. And what if it's a really busy day and there's a group of scouts walking down the road? They didn't take Chamberlain Avenue to go to the 20th Main. They're just walking straight down the road. And they're coming the opposite way on the other side. How's that car getting through? So it's a big traffic jam. So there is no ban on bicycles on Little Roundtop. There is no ban on Segways. However,
because Segways can't go the speed limit, and
right.
you kind of laid out a pretty good hypothetical situation that it really just becomes a potential danger, a safety issue that
right.
There are other ways for folks who are riding Segways to get to the top of Little Roundtop in a safe way. And we just talked about that a couple minutes ago with some of these alternative satellite parking. Park them in one of these other locations, use the trails, walk up, walk back to your Segway, and take a different route. That's really what it comes down to. It really is a safety thing. And then for bicycles.
But I have a question though. Okay, let's say I'm the Segway Tours.
Yep.
And I park my Segways on Warren Avenue in one of those spots. Mm-hmm. Okay. We get out, we walk to the top of the summit, we come back down. How do I get out? I can't.
That's true. Yeah.
Warren isn't two-way anymore.
So
I'd have to go out to the Tawnytown Road.
So the onus then would be on whoever is leading
guide,
that tour. That then the best location would be to either park maybe in Devil's Den and take the Texas Trail up, or go up Wheatfield Road to the gravel lot there at Wheatfield and Sedgwick and walk in that way. Because there you do have, because so many of the roads on the battlefield are one way, that you would then be going against traffic, and that's not safe either.
Right. And then as far as bicycles go, they are able and allowed to dismount and walk bikes over pathways.
Correct.
So for the bicyclists, and now if you have a guide, the guide would presumably know this and lead you the right way. But if you're a group of your family, or some adventuring group or whatever, and you all go out as a group and you just decide to guide yourself around, you should know that you want to actually get Chamberlain Avenue, which is down where the 20th Main is, and that will take you up behind the 20th Main position, and you can go across the road and get onto Little Roundtop without riding on the road at all. But you just have to dismount and walk your bikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, we designed some of the sidewalks and the parking and so forth with where are we going to put a bike rack in mind. When we were getting to that point and the calendar was rolling over towards that area. So we purposefully built a concrete pad on what would be the southwest corner as you're approaching the summit where the car parking and bus parking are.
Right.
So it'd be on the near left where there's a bike rack. So
there's no plan to.
It's right there, and in fact, we may need to put in more because we've heard from staff and I think even from licensed battlefield guides that in some cases there were so many bikes up there that the bike rack was full.
Yeah. So
that's a good problem to have.
It is.
I think, because that's bicycling around the battlefield is a amazing,
it's the best way to do it.
Beautiful way to see the battlefield.
Best way to do it, and I think when the lockdowns happened, it became popular again. People said, well, let's get bikes for the family and we'll go riding. And people took up the hobby, and I think a lot of people continue with it. And this is a beautiful place to do that.
Yeah.
And it really is. I mean, you could walk the battlefield, but it'd take you forever. You can't do a 3-hour tour walking the whole thing, but you can on a bike.
Yeah.
And there's something really magical about listening to the stories of the battle while the ground is undulating under your rump as you go up and down. And there's hills, and you really get to see you don't get it in a car. You don't understand the hills, the ridges. Walking and biking, that's how you do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
you have to work for it.
You do. But you really can appreciate what these soldiers did.
Yeah.
Because they're walking, and there's people shooting at them while they're walking, and you're riding on a bike. And I'm thinking this one part between the Tennessee Monument and the Virginia Monument where it goes downhill and up again.
Up again. Yep.
I used to love that on a bike tour because I would just speed down the hill and use that momentum to get back up the hill, right? And so I didn't have to pedal the whole way.
Yeah.
But some people don't think ahead like that, and so they're just kind of riding the brakes the whole way down, and then they go to pedal on the way up.
No.
And they're but you're putting
what goes up must come down.
Yeah.
What goes down must come up.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're putting the effort in. You're getting winded, and now just imagine people are shooting at you while you're doing this. And you have to go up.
Yeah.
Like you have to go up because you get up there, then there's a chance that you're not going to get shot at because you'll push them off the hill or something. But whatever it is, but you gotta do it, and it is really the best way to do it. Getty's Bike Tours is coming back in the spring, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. So just thought I'd let you know that.
There you go.
All right. Anything else? Oh, we got one call here, so let's take the call, and then we'll see what you have there to talk about. If you have anything else to talk about, this is the great 6 questions lens here. 6 questions. You are on the air.
Hello. Yes. I just have a quick question about the Slider Farm and the Bushman Farm, and the renting out of both of those properties. How has that gone? How has that program gone? And are there any plans, potentially a discussion of plans of expanding that beyond just those 2 locations? Yeah.
So the thanks for that question. And that is a program that is it's a test.
Yeah.
It's a trial run. We're doing that for a couple years, and we're starting out with just 2 of the structures. As he noted, the Slider House and the Bushman House, both of which are on the south end of the battlefield. And they have done so well that initially when we first announced that these 2 buildings, these 2 houses were going to be available, and it's technically in government speak, it's a short-term lease rather than a rental, but call it whatever you want. I think we launched it in mid to late May with the first 6 months. So basically, I think went from June through near the end of December.
Okay.
Both houses were sold out, if you will, I think within about 2.5 weeks.
I heard they went fast. Yeah. And rightfully so, because a friend of a friend was staying at the Slider Farm. And so my friend said, hey, Matt, you want to go see the inside of the Slider Farm? My friend is staying there. And I said, yes. So I went. and it's beautiful inside.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a really good job, and they didn't they respected, like, they kept the integrity of the place as a historic farmhouse, right? They didn't like all modernize it. I mean, there's modern conveniences in there, of course, but it's still very much an old 19th century farmhouse.
Yes.
And it's really neat. And the upstairs is, you know, it's not like what we're used to, but it's really cool for a couple of nights. You can go there and like, oh, and then, but the best part is you're the only one allowed out there at night.
Yeah.
Like, you can enjoy the stars, you can enjoy the quiet, the crickets, whatever the hell you want to enjoy, you can do it because you're renting that place.
But keep in mind that you can only stay within the boundary of those
Oh,
properties.
yeah.
You can't just wander the battlefield simply because you're staying there does not give you
Right. It's not all your backyard.
No,
you don't have a
no.
6,000 acre backyard.
No, see the regular rules and regulations still apply, except for what's known
Who
as
cares though? Why do you don't need to go all the way? I mean, that property there is beautiful, and there's something about that property that always got me because it almost looks like when you get to the barns and the outbuildings and stuff, the way the landscape is and the way they all fit into it always kind of reminded me of, you know, like something like you'd see out of The Hobbit or something. Like there's those big boulders that in the barnyard there.
And you're talking Slider, not Bushman.
Slider.
Yeah.
I've never been in the Bushman farm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my next one. I'm waiting for a friend of a friend to stay at the Bushman farm. Or a listener who might want to invite me by for a beer.
You have no shame.
I don't really.
You have no shame.
I really don't. Life's too short for shame.
So let's get back to the caller's question.
Yeah, what was the question?
How's
it going?
It's going fantastic. We released a second 6 months, so from January through I think May or June of 25, and that I think is maybe last I heard maybe 50%, but but those dates are likely to get
People
taken up.
haven't made their plans yet.
Right.
Yeah.
It's typically one of those things for if you're anything like me, we kind of get through Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and then now what?
Right. Then you start looking into next year.
Right.
Yeah. I want to see if I can just survive till New Year's once Thanksgiving comes around. You know, because the holidays are just too much for me.
Love the food.
Can't get enough of the food.
It's to put it mildly, yes, it's going very well. We are seeing a fantastic response from the visitors who are able to again short-term lease these spaces, because it's a trial, we maybe have long-term ideas, but there's no way of telling what's going to happen between now and 3 or 4 years out. So we're taking it slow. We're being very deliberate with this. But yes, it is possible that another house would come online, and that could be the Rose House. Would be the next one.
Now, is that being worked on still? Weren't they renovating it or something inside?
Yep. There's that house on the inside had been kind of Frankensteined over the years. Yeah. And so a lot of the work that we had to do was kind of disassemble Frankenstein and put back the historical bones. So that, you know, the kitchen used to be properly, let's say, in one side of the house, but it had been moved to a completely opposite side. Walls were put up where there weren't walls. It was a weird space on the inside. So that the inside of that house needed a lot of work to bring it back to what Matt was saying about how it's critically important for us to maintain the historic footprint, the historic integrity, because it is a full-on connection to the Battle of Gettysburg. Those houses saw the battle, and so we're being deliberate, but for a good reason, because we need to do it right the first time. We have one shot at this. Just like Little Roundtop. We're not going to go back to Little Roundtop and rehab it again in a couple years.
Right.
This is
75 years down the road.
This is a 50 to 75 year thing where, you know, we like to say that we're in the long game, the long business, as opposed to short-term stuff. So
if I'm not mistaken, the Rose Farm was in private hands until was it 1980?
that could be
Late 70s, something like that. A friend of mine, her family, I think, lived there. They were the last people to have it. So I mean, and I remember peeking in. I've never been in it, but I remember peeking in the window several years ago, and it was like, it was very hodgepodged. Yeah, you know, you could see the different. Like it was like, it's a 1950s kitchen sink, and that's a, yeah. Now, but talking about farmhouses and having one chance and everything like that. What about the Klingel Farm? What is going on with the Klingel Farm? Are we going to lose the Klingel Farm? What is the plan? What's going on?
So we're working on plans, and we're basically waiting for funding. That's kind of where things are. So we're
is it funding from the government or from private, like from the foundation, or
right now government?
Yeah. Do you have to get government first before you can get foundation or other private funding?
No.
Okay.
If that's the case, then
you'd never get anything.
I mean, to put it mildly, let's say in the case of the Klingel, the funding for structures like that, I give you extreme examples.
Okay.
It took 13 years to get the funding for Little Roundtop.
Right.
13 years.
Yeah.
So a typical time frame is probably 3 or 4 years out. So that's kind of what we're working within the constraints of that right now.
Okay.
And if something were to come up in the meantime that would help address Klingel, then obviously we're gonna jump on that. But nothing has come up just yet.
One of the viewers said that he stayed at the Slider Farm this past weekend, and he said it was very cool.
Yeah.
So there you go, Mike. You have another question or anything?
Did I answer everything for you?
Thank you.
You bet.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, sir.
All right, Mike. Enjoy the rain. Talk to you later. Let's see you Thursday. Okay. Well, so I think I've asked everything that I had to ask you, and then some. I didn't think of the Klingel thing until you just brought that up there. Anything else you want to add before we go?
I'm looking at all my notes. I think we've covered everything for this conversation. But yeah, if any other callers want to come in or come
I have
no, not they don't come in.
They don't come in. They just call. But yeah, I'll give you a note. 717-420-1970. I'll give you like 2 minutes to call in if you want to. I have to say, I was afraid that after doing the Beaver Pond episode with Jen Murray and Mike Walker and Timothy Orr, that I would become persona non grata within the Park Service. So I'm very glad that you came back. But I just want to be fair, and I think that everybody should hear both sides of any story. And I feel that I've always had the park on to talk about that, but I've never had historians on to talk about why the Beavers should go. So
I do have one other thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, we found something new this past weekend on the battlefield.
All right, let me think. Found something new on the battlefield.
Something new on the battlefield.
Is this an historic artifact or is this? Oh wait, okay. Let me guess. You found a new beaver dam, but you're going to say, and we removed it.
Good guess, but no.
Oh, that was a pure guess, though. So, okay, go ahead. What did you find?
So the new thing that we found is a brand new invasive species of plant that grows 8 inches a day.
Oh my God! Invasive from where? Mars?
Asia.
You're kidding me.
If your listeners want to check this out, you can Google it right now.
What's it called?
It goes by a number of different names, but the one that I've been hearing most is the Chinese potato vine. Chinese potato vine.
Sounds terrifying. Looks delicious.
You can actually eat it.
Oh, can you?
Yes.
The Chinese yam, is that another name for it? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, Chinese yam or Dioscorea polystacia.
That's what I meant to say.
Also known as a cinnamon vine.
Yes,
so you
cinnamon
can
vine.
Actually eat this.
Yeah, so I haven't had a chance yet to kind of look into recipes, but it's one of those things where under normal circumstances we might think of potatoes being a root vegetable.
Yeah,
they grow underground.
Yeah,
these guys look like those little mini potatoes that you used to get at
Sure.
cafeteria lunch in elementary school, but they grow in little bunches on top of the plant. But it's so invasive, and this is one of those things that we were talking about today amongst the staff. We really need to get a list together and put a new web page together that lists all of the horrible invasive species of plants that have invaded the Gettysburg area, the battlefield specifically.
Yeah.
Some of them grow like this one, 8 inches a day.
When do they stop?
Right.
I mean, do they? I mean, they must.
I don't know. I mean, we just found this one over the weekend.
You found one?
No.
Patch.
We found it for the first time. Let me rephrase it.
Where did you find it?
Slaughter pen. They
See, if we had kept up with the clearing.
Guess what we were doing this past weekend?
Clearing.
See.
Good. But that's how you discovered it.
And that gets back to the volunteer program that is going to really get underway in 25. So that's coming. So
because you have somebody to manage them now,
we
right?
do, and we're getting all of our ducks in a row, and our ducks were all over the pond.
Yeah,
before it was a.
And we're gonna get this person on once she right is
yep.
settled into her job and knows what she's gonna do. We're gonna have her on to talk about this.
We need to. There's still a lot of internal.
Yeah, you got to figure it out.
It's federal government. Right. There's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot.
Of course.
But yeah, it was part of National Public Lands Day over the weekend. We had just a couple volunteers to come in as part of that program. Weather was horrible.
Yeah.
Couple staff members, but we were able to clear out the area in Slaughter Pen around Elephant Rock.
So that's where you found it around Elephant Rock,
and that's where this was found. It's again, if you read into what this plant likes, it's kind of edges of water features.
Okay.
So now that we know it's here, we can plan
get rid of the beavers.
For you know what? They're slacking off. Apparently they don't.
Yeah. Why aren't they eating?
I don't know.
It's potatoes. Come on, beavers.
Right?
Everybody loves potatoes.
Who doesn't like potatoes?
Starchy and delicious.
Mash them.
Yeah. There's so many things your beavers could be doing with these things.
But this is one of many of the invasive species that we're having such a difficult time keeping up with, and yay, we have a new one.
Are we allowed, if it's an invasive species, are we allowed to then destroy the plant? Is it our civic duty to do so? You know, like the botfly, right? We were told if you see the botfly, kill it, which those things are hard to kill. They are fast.
They are fast.
I've only been able to successfully kill one.
You're not very fast.
Very slow. Very slow.
I've gotten more than one.
Have you?
I have.
Well, I've only tried for 2.
So you're batting 500. Well, then you're not doing so bad. You're not doing so bad.
I mean, you know.
That one. Now, here's the thing about invasive species. It's one of those things that we can treat with herbicides, but we have to have the right herbicide to do it. So
we kill the other.
We don't necessarily encourage visitors to do it on their own, although we would appreciate that sentiment. But let's figure out what we need to do from a federal perspective and the proper way to do it. And then if by chance it dies, if you just pull it out by its roots, then maybe that's one of the volunteer projects that we have in and around the slaughter pen in 25.
If it grows 8 inches a day, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does.
8 inches a day. Does it eventually like grow along the ground, or do they have stalks that can go?
I just learned about it today.
That's going to be taller than Big Roundtop in a month.
I don't know if it goes up or if it grows out.
Yeah. It must go out.
Most of the ones grow out.
Because it's not a tree, it's a plant.
Not a tree, it's a plant.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a good question here. Somebody asks, do you have any issues, meaning the park, with people camping on Big Roundtop? I ran across 2 people this weekend. It looked like they had been outside for a while. Campers on Big Roundtop, are you familiar with that? Obviously, the answer is no, right? You can't camp anywhere you want.
There is actually no camping permitted in either park.
Except at McMillan Woods, no?
Not anymore.
Why? Boy Scouts can't camp there?
Yeah.
They can?
No.
Yes, they can't.
It was what started to happen with McMillan Woods is that when the pandemic hit, of course, all of that kind of stuff had to stop. When the pandemic was happening, that gave us a lot of opportunities to kind of scratch the surface a little bit. And of course, we know that there's a World War II era camp, the CCC camp, the World War II prisoners were kind of kept in that. So that area, McMillan Woods, that footprint is very historic. It may not necessarily be as much as we might think for Battle of Gettysburg, but there are in fact remnant breastworks in those trees. So the more we kind of peeled back a couple of the layers and did, because we had an opportunity to do so, we found more and more stuff. So for the sake of archaeological, what's the word I'm looking for?
Protection?
Let's get, sure, protection. Okay. For archaeological protection, we're not going to bring them back, at least for right now, until we have an opportunity here again to better get a grasp on the different layers of history that are involved in that area that date back to July of 1863, come through the Depression area, the CCC era, and World War II.
That's what's so fascinating.
So we may have really 3 solid stories on 3 different layers, all on the same plot of land. And so we need to...
So what is it now then? What can people... Because the driveway is enclosed as far as I know, right?
No, that's the parking area is still being utilized by out-of-park horse riders. Daily.
That's right.
Daily horse rides.
Yeah, okay.
So tours are out of there by the...
But no camping.
By some of the horse tour companies, and individuals can bring their truck, their horse trailer, and their horses, and pop out from there and use the horse trails. But no camping for right now. Nothing has been... No decision has been made one way or the other.
Right.
We're still kind of in limbo.
Just
but because of that...
Pause on camping.
Yes.
Eric Houston says camping at McMillan Woods was one of the coolest things I ever got to do on the battlefield. Yeah, I've never done it, but a friend of mine was a middle school teacher, and he used to march his students. He was a history teacher, and he would march his students from New Oxford out here along Route 30, and they would camp at McMillan Woods. He was a licensed battlefield guide too, and he still is. And they would camp out there, and the kids loved it. Yeah, especially when the acorns would fall. And it would hit the... I guess there's like a tin roof on the... metal roof or walnuts, acorns, whatever. But they thought they were like gunshots because they would get loud,
Oh, I'm sure.
And
there's
kids...
a pavilion. There's a picnic
pavilion. That's right.
What it is.
And I've met a few of his former students when they were older, and they all said that was like the biggest memory from their middle school years was going out there with him, and what a fun time they had. But you imagine that, marching students 11 miles today?
No. Who's signing off on that permission slip?
Well, when they adopted Common Core, he wasn't allowed to do that anymore. So and it was a heartbreak.
To get back to the initial question, that there seemed to be 2 folks out there that have been out there for a while.
Camping,
it's possible that folks have come down from the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, that happens.
That does happen. And in fact, I saw maybe just a day or 2, there was a new record set on the Appalachian Trail. A young lady was able to do the whole thing in 40 days.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
She must have been in really good shape.
Must have been. But the pictures of her probably looked like the pictures, a picture you would have.
So in other words, unless he saw them actually in a set up in a campsite, they probably were just passing through.
That would be my initial guess.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my initial guess, because I wouldn't say it's common, but it does happen. That Gettysburg, Eisenhower, and that kind of stuff it's an attraction, even though it's a considerable amount of miles away from the trail. If you're on the trail, though, from the trail in the Waynesboro area to Gettysburg,
that's
nothing.
Yeah, right. Compared to right, yeah.
I mean, if you're going 2,000 miles,
that's
on the Appalachian Trail,
it's a slight detour.
15, 20 miles to Gettysburg is just a little detour.
I do have one more thing that someone just mentioned in the comments. Ben, our buddy Ben, who wrote on the rock, and the park wrote him a letter. So Ben writes his name on a rock, right? Scratches it into a rock, right? It wasn't chiseled, it wasn't painted, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he got a letter from the park. You wrote the letter, didn't you?
I may have had something.
You may have. That reeks of Jason, that letter. I knew it was you.
I had help. I can't take full credit for it. There were multiple layers of help. We didn't.
But little Ben,
we had some fun with that one.
But Ben, Ben's a little kid, right? We assume Ben is a kid.
Do we?
I do. And by kid I mean 22 and under. Listen, have you met some of these college kids? Okay, I know kindergartners who are more mature than a lot of these college kids. Ben.
Ben.
Yeah, we're talking about Ben.
Let's talk about Ben.
Yeah. So Ben does this thing. He gets a letter from the park on social media. How did that go over with the commenters on the Book of Faces?
I don't remember.
I don't either. That's why I was asking you. But maybe somebody in there would.
We've been working on a lot of different things for social media, but again, between the end of the battle anniversary after 4th of July holiday and so forth, we've been hitting World War II weekend really hard. So when things like that pop up, it's we're trying to bring something to the front that we really don't want to.
Ben.
These kinds of things, and if we have an opportunity, we will. We don't want to, because this isn't.
But don't you think? Okay. But the letter from Ben, I mean, I got what you were doing, and I appreciated the humor of it. But I also saw that, from I don't think it went over too well. From what I recall, I couldn't tell you if it was 50-50, 75-25, whatever. But from what I recall, the comments were not particularly appreciative of the snarkiness of the Ben letter, which I love snark. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I get that. But also, I don't know if it, like, that would have been funny to like write and then hang on the bulletin board in the office. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that's the thing that people appreciate coming out publicly. What do you say to that?
No, I hear you. I hear you. We were coming also out of the damage that was done on Little Roundtop like a week before.
So you were just pissed. We shouldn't say pissed. You were fed up with the vandalism.
It's really hard for us because we do care.
Yeah.
Whether we're seen as that, it's difficult for me to even describe how much time and effort goes into the work behind the scenes that the public never sees.
Listen, you have a sympathetic ear here, my friend. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So when we needed to go public about everything that happened on Little Roundtop, which then kind of coalesced around the damage that was done by the spray painter on the Oak Hill Tower.
Yeah.
Those were two completely separate things, but that was the third one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the paint at Oak Hill Tower. It was the stone being carved up at
Little Roundtop,
and then Ben.
Good old Ben
behind Devil's Den is where that was.
But
so what sometimes we have to do, and again, we don't necessarily want to do this, but to some degree, have to make a point,
Mm-hmm.
and to do so maybe in a different way. And I think that's where we were coming from. So I completely understand that maybe the sentiment didn't go over, and that we maybe didn't make the connection. But from our perspective, that was the third one.
Yeah.
And it's how much do we have to ask for the general public to not do this? Because
I mean, I'm with you on that.
Matt, at the end of the day, the things that we have to go back and fix is taking us away from the stuff that we were supposed to do that day.
Right.
Or that week, or that month, or whatever it takes to kind of get something back.
Yeah. I remember years ago, my friends had a kid who was, he had to be 12, 13 years old, somewhere around there. And he was up, just hanging out in Devil's Den with his parents, my friends, and he scratched his name into one of the boulder he was on, Adam. And a law enforcement ranger saw him and said, "Hey, young man." And he ended up having to come back to community service, scrub it off, right? And and his parents were like, "No, you have to do." He was like, "Get me out of this." Like, "Nope, you're doing this. You're not supposed to go around doing that stuff." I don't know if parents really do that nowadays, because had they seen him doing it, because he wandered off. Had they seen him doing it, they would have.
You're saying Ben wandered
No, I'm
off.
saying Adam.
Oh,
had his parents seen him, they would have stopped him. They would have kicked the stone out of his hand and, told him not to do that and made him scrape it off there. Ben's parents, I don't think Ben's parents disciplined Ben at all. That's my thought on Ben. Do you think that it's a copycat? Is there ever a fear that by certain things you can't avoid, like the tower, I would say, with paint, that's very permanent, that's very noticeable. Someone's going to break that story somewhere, so you might as well be you, right? But a boulder, where was Ben's boulder?
It was one of the ones at the top behind Devil's Den. I can't remember exactly.
All right, so that could be seen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But if it's something maybe a little more obscured by vegetation or something, is it easier to just
maybe
get rid of it and just not say anything about it? But I understand what you're saying. You don't want to have to keep putting up with that.
We're still dealing with it internally, whether the public hears about it, whether the public sees it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it's obscure.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's not visible one
you
day
know
versus
about it.
We know about it.
Yeah.
And it takes away from the battlefield. And it's something that our fears are that in some of these cases that we can't fix it. It's something that
it'll be
our fear
destroyed
is that it won't weather off for 2 decades, 1 decade, 5 years, even a month. Doesn't matter. It's then that becomes something that has the potential to snowball.
Sure. What about any updates on the Benner Farm or the Timbers Farm vandalism, finding the perpetrators of all that stuff?
Not at the moment.
And
I actually meant to try to get an update for you, and I ran out of time.
Well, maybe November you could remember to do that. Yeah. Do you know, is there ever going to be a time when law enforcement is going to say, okay, here's what was stolen from the Timbers Farm? And, because, it could turn up somewhere. I don't know what was stolen. I have an idea, but I haven't had it confirmed. But you could find it on eBay maybe someday. Mm-hmm. But how would somebody know that that's a hot item, so to speak, right? Unless we let them know. Mm-hmm. So do you think there will be a time where they'll come out and say, okay, well, here's what was done at the Benner Farm, here's what was done at the Timbers Farm?
It's possible. That's the specifics when it gets down to brass tacks as far as law enforcement is concerned, that's their wheelhouse. And that's not
they're going to do what they're going to do.
That's not what I get paid for.
Right.
So even, they have to do what they are lawfully obliged to do at the federal level. And there are steps. And they have to go through step 1, step 2, step 3, and the last time we talked, I think I wrote you a somewhat comical email.
Yes.
Something along the lines of what real
More smarm.
actual law enforcement
Investigations
take more than an hour.
Right. Contrary to what you see on TV.
Contrary to what you see on TV, they do take longer than an hour. And that's still where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there is something that we are allowed to release to the public, we will.
Okay.
But until then, you have as much information as we are basically allowed to provide.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds fair to me. Otherwise, I think I have asked you everything. The last question I want to ask you is something Grant put in the comments here, and this is very near and dear to my heart, and I'll keep asking it until the answer is yes. Will they ever keep the park open till 10 o'clock again, at least in the summertime?
Don't know.
It's better than no. That's better than no.
Don't know.
We'll keep on hoping.
It's
wishing.
But, the answer to that one is probably akin to Ben.
So, what, smarmy?
No, it's not. It doesn't.
What do you mean akin to Ben?
So when these kinds of things happen,
Yeah.
what are we supposed to do? When monuments are damaged and it was in the dark, it only takes one.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's it's that it's that type of.
So maybe if people will stop
mentality.
vandalizing things in broad daylight, they'll be able to trust us at night, is what you're saying.
Or in the dark, for that matter.
That's
nighttime.
But
yeah, I mean, that's the base truth of these things.
What about an armed posse, all volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
and we ride on horseback around the park at night, and we just, handle it Old West style?
I'll take it up with management.
I'll be the captain.
I figured you would.
Okay, good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to eat. We've had a long day, long life, long week, lots of rain. If you're part of the Addressing Gettysburg Film Club, don't forget you have Film Club tonight, 8 o'clock. Cold Harbor is the movie you're doing. And if you haven't joined it yet, why haven't you joined? There's also a book club if films aren't for you. Go ahead and contact me, and I'll give you the email or whatever. Otherwise, that's it. Thank you very much, Jason, for coming
Absolutely.
on. Thank you for calling in and commenting, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for watching, as always. Thank you for your continued support, and we will talk to you next time. All right. We're done.